Yep, that's green screen footage in a 3D world with lighting in Godot. Let's see how I did it. For this we're gonna use free software: DaVinci Resolve, Shutter Encoder, Godot and OBS. The only paid things here are the green screen, camera and a subject. Humans are very expensive. Okay, so I got my recording here in DaVinci Resolve. I've already color graded it. So I got nice vivid colors. Now we go to this tab over here, which is for color grading. And then this little pipette over here is the qualifier for chroma keying. So just make sure this one is selected over here. Just go back. And before I forget, make sure this little top highlight is turned on. You should have it on highlight or highlight black and white. That's usually the clearest one. I can see, and you can see that it's actually keying the green screen, and it has erased myself. So instead I want to invert it, so I am the only thing visible. In this window to the right here, you want to add an alpha output. Connect that by clicking and dragging. Now we have our footage. Of course I need to crop it still. Let's see if we can add a little bit by using the little plus pipette here. Yeah, there's still some weirdness going on for some reason. Playing around with the in-out radius also really helps. Yeah, this is pretty good. There we go. Okay, let's add a solid green background to it. Now the reason I'm doing this is because the chroma keying in DaVinci Resolve is infinitely better than the chroma keying with shaders in Godot. So this way I'm making things a lot easier for the later stages. Now another thing I want to do... Okay, OBS didn't record it, but here I'm going to the settings and then going to my timeline resolution settings and setting it to a 2K texture format, so 2048 by 2048. Let's see. I want to zoom in my footage. Fits that square. A little bit tight on my head there, but that's okay. So now we're going to the last tab, the deliver. So usually you'd use something like ProRes or DHXR, which I don't see here. But for our purposes, I'm just going to export to H.264, which is a very common format that most editors can export to. And don't forget to set the quality to best. Well, that will set it to 80 megabits per second. It should be plenty for a 2K, well, texture basically. We're not exactly doing video here. You want the quality to be as good as possible so that you have nice sharp footage, so that the later conversion to the format of OGG Theora will be the best quality. And you can always downscale it there. Okay, and here we have Shutter Encoder. I've already loaded up my file. I just rendered in DaVinci Resolve. And now I'm going to choose function. Let's see, output codecs. That's in all the way in old codecs, Theora. So go figures. So let's see here. No audio, that's what we want. It's a bit iffy, the button. I'm just gonna leave the video bitrate to auto and see what happens. So start function. And then we wait for 2 minutes, okay. Okay, here we are in Godot. This is the project for the video you saw in the intro. And the setup is pretty simple. First of all, you need, of course, to get your video onto a texture. So for that, we have a sub viewport in our 3D scene with its size set to the texture size or the video size rather. So we have 2048 by 2048. And well, to make sure that it all runs properly, I set up the update mode to always. Now, as a child of that sub viewport, we have the video stream player. Well, it doesn't really have any special settings. I just clicked and dragged my OG Theora video file over to the stream. Here now. And I also turned autoplay off. You can use autoplay if you want your video to play immediately when you start the game. But I have delegated that to a little script in my root node that just calls play on the video stream player and also on the animation player for the background whenever I press space. So you could do something similar like that. Now that sets up the render to texture for the video. The only thing we need now is something to display it on. Now I have used a mesh instance 3D and with just a quad mesh right here. You can also use a sprite 3D optionally in billboarded mode if you want to do some camera motion and you want to make sure that the camera is always looking straight at the plane, like so. Sprite 3D is very handy for that because it has billboarding. On the surface material override of this plane, I've put my own custom shader. So add a new shader material, and then you add my custom green screen shader. So now the video text, the sampler texture input of the shader needs of course to be the video output. So you need to add a viewport texture. Don't forget to set this resource as local to scene right here. That's important because otherwise you cannot read a sub viewport. Once you've added viewport texture, you can select your sub viewport and you're all set up. Default values of the shader should work okay. You probably want to tweak the chroma key color and pickup range unless you have done the DaVinci Resolve or video editing thing by replacing the original green screen with a pure green background. Then you can leave the key color alone. That's already set to pure green by default. Still need to tweak the pickup range just to get the edges a little bit better. But that depends on your video editing skills, really. There's also a variable for normal intensity. If you want to boost the lighting a little bit, you can do so. Keep in mind that the normals generated are a little bit crude. I didn't entirely invent the wheel here. I'll just quickly go through it. It does have culling disabled, so if you have a light behind your subject, then it still casts shadows in front of it. Other than that, there is the sampler for the video text, and then we have some properties such as UV offsets, in which you can actually offset the footage on the plane itself. Just beware of texture repeat. You might need to turn that off. And then there's the chroma key color. You can also see these parameters on the right side here, so you can edit them. You can set the color of your chroma key. You can set the pickup range, which basically sets how much deviation is allowed from the color that you set. And within that range, everything will be, as you can see here, discarded. So I'm not using normal transparency, I'm just using alpha scissoring with just a hard discard. And that this gives you nice crisp edges, which is usually what you want. And also has a little fade factor in there to kind of fade out the color near the edges. It's an additional aid in getting those last few green pixels eliminated. Then there's a lot of math going on to convert the video into grayscale and sampling 4 points that are situated around the current texel. And from that, I generate a normal map. And that's basically it. That's all the shader does. Now, furthermore, we have our camera 3D. It's a standard Godot camera. We have our environment here. This. And then an animation player. Oh, hello. And then finally you have our animation player that does the animation, animates the camera and animates the spinny background with the lights, just to make things a little bit interesting. And finally there's a world environment to make this skybox, which is an HDR texture, and of course set all the fancy graphics, volumetrics, glow, SDFGI. And SSR I also have turned on quite high actually. I also do some filmic tone mapping to make it make the contrast a little bit nicer, and well, that's basically everything.